Hello, my lovelies, and welcome back to yet another episode of the Ages of Chaos, another appendix episode for Codex Chaos Space Marines 9.0, in fact. Let's shift gears a little bit. Thus far, we've done some of the traditional traitor legions, which is the main focus of this book. There are, however, two renegade armies in this book for the sake of expediency, and so there are not like multiple keywords flying about all over the place. In rules terms they're referred to as legions, but they're not. They are examples of the many different renegade warbands that are out there, that serve the chaos powers, that operate according to their own piratical ideologies, that have effectively turned against the Imperium and are doing whatever the hell they like now. Some of the more traditional ones are actually kind of conspicuous by their absence, like no Crimson Slaughter. In fact, even though some of the renegade warbands are described in the background here, the Crimson Slaughter aren't. In fact, they're not even mentioned. And that is really weird, isn't it? Given how much attention and how much time has been given to the Crimson Slaughter over successive editions of Warhammer 40,000 since 6th edition, there's not much of them here, and that's really weird. You've got things like the Brazen Beasts, the Flawless Host, the Scourged, all of those guys are here. The Purge, obviously, but not the Crimson Slaughter, and that is really, really weird. There are little nods to them. Cranon's Blade of the Relentless, for example, is a relic that you can take. It's not called Cranon's Blade of the Relentless, it's just the Blade of the Relentless. And there's also a stratagem that allows you to do their their whole thing, here we are, Terrifying Phenomena, where the whole thing with the background of the Crimson Slaughter, where when they fall on a battlefield, all of this weirdy, beardy, supernatural stuff starts to happen. Spectres start to surround them, walls bleed, rock splits, the air fills with phantasms, and so on and so forth. There is a stratagem that allows you to represent that. And in terms of representing the Crimson Slaughter, this is probably one of the best books ever to do it with. They are so well represented by this book. You just go for a sort of Demonkin style army and you've pretty much got it. You've pretty much got how the Crimson Slaughter play. But I'm very surprised there's no background for them. There's no mention of them specifically, because they have been quite prominent and important in recent editions. I don't know. Maybe they're saving them for something else. Maybe they'll be one of those weird little campaign army lists. You know, the army lists that you find in the campaign books. Maybe they'll be one of them. I don't know. But one of the renegade armies we do have is one of the most traditional, which is, of course, the Creations of Bile. The Creations of Bile, it's an army list that was originally introduced in one of the Psychic Awakening books, War of the Spider, and it effectively represents those odd, eclectic warbands of mutated, genetically enhanced entities and creatures that Fabius Bile has had his mitts on, that he's tinkered with genetically and surgically and turned into abominations, effectively. They've always occurred in the background. There's always been mention of them in the background, but they've never really been that well represented in an army list. All you've really done, traditionally, is taken Fabius Bile in a standard Chaos Space Marine army list, and that's how you've done it. It's been sort of like a proxy army list, almost. Now they've got their own sub-list in the back of the Chaos Codex. It's a kind of an appendix list. It's not as fleshed out, it's not as big as the Legion-specific supplements, but it is still very, very, very good indeed. First of all, Fabius Bile himself, he's so well represented in this book. Fabius is one of my favourite characters amongst the Chaos Space Marine special characters, alongside Ahriman. I would say him and Ahriman are probably level pegging in my esteem, especially after having read Josh Reynolds' amazing trilogy of Fabius Bile books. He comes across as one of the sanest people in the 40k universe, certainly one of the most reasonable. And bear in mind, this guy is a eugenicist who makes Mengele look basically like a nurse in a GP surgery. This guy's idea of eugenicism is so far beyond anything that exists in actual human culture that even the most extreme eugenicist alive would look at what he does and go, ooh, that's a bit much. That's a bit strong, Mr. Bile. But yes, he of the excellent miniature and fabulous flesh coat is amazing, actually, in this codex. He's always been a little bit difficult to use. He's always been a little bit of a compromise in previous editions. This one, nothing of it. He is not only is he no slouch in combat himself, he's actually very, 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 very bloody good indeed. He also has the ability to upgrade either himself or another unit every turn, and every upgrade is very, very, very good. The only compromise is that they can't have a Mark of Chaos, which is fine. You're not going to use this ability that much because it does require an action, so he's got to be sort of out of action while he does it. But it's going to be very, very, very useful for particular units in your army. You've got to think about how you use Fabius Bile, and you're going to have to construct your army list around him and sort of modulate your battle plan around him, but that's fine. He's that kind of character. If you're going to include him, that's what you're going to do anyway. The creations of Bile, their Legion trait is experimental enhancement. So, Fabius Bile is a twisted flesh crafter whose quest to surpass the Emperor's genetic science has borne myriad horrific fruits. As a result, all of his terrata are chemically... Terrata is the term coined by Graham McNeil for the hideous creations that Bile comes up with. It's a mythological reference, and it's also a reference to one of my favourite writers, which is Clive Barker. It's a reference to The Great and Secret Show, where there's a character called the Jaff who creates entities from people's innermost dreads, phobias, fears, and calls them his terrata. That's what this is a reference to. His terrata are chemically, physically, and biomechanically altered by his experiments, elevating their abilities above those of similar beings for now. There is a tendency for Bile's creations to break down after they've done what they're supposed to do, but hey, he doesn't mind, so why should you? So, the two halves of the Legion trait. Add 1 inch to the move characteristic of models with this trait, and add 1 to the strength characteristic of models with this trait. Very straightforward, very good. It means that your army is going to be faster and stronger. It's going to move quicker, it's going to hit harder. I know that 1 inch doesn't seem like that much, but actually, especially for certain units, it's very, very good indeed. It can make the difference between being in a position to make a charge and not, being in a position to perform an action and not. It's actually very good. And the +1 strength explains itself. They're going to hit harder. They're going to wound much easier. Very, very, very nice indeed. Second half, each time a model with this trait is destroyed by a melee attack, if that model has not fought this phase, do not remove it from play. The destroyed model can fight after the attacking model's unit has finished making attacks, and is then removed from play. That is excellent. Very, very good indeed. It's not only good immediately, so in the midst of combat, if your models with this trait die, they don't die immediately. They get to hit back, but it also has a psychological edge to it. It means that certainly with units that are really hard-hitting, like Possessed, like Terminators, your opponent is going to think twice about engaging them in melee because they're never going to be able to shift them without taking damage. It's actually really bloody good. I would say this is one of the better of the Legion traits, to be perfectly honest. It's very easy to use. It's not that situational. It's pretty much universal. You are going to get use out of this in any battle. Yeah, it's a good one. It's a very, very good one. Just like all of the Legions, there is a secondary objective called Specimens for the Spider. The Spider is another term for Fabius Bile, by the way. It's a euphemism. He's got many, the Primogenitor, Manflayer, Chemmaster, and so many others, some of which he's come up with himself. Fabulous Bill, obviously, which is one we love. So, Bile's endless gruesome experiments require a constant influx of rarefied and exotic specimens. His creations are often dispatched to seize hulking xenos monstrosities, genetic aberrations, or individuals carrying arcane knowledge or bio-artifacts. If you select this objective, score victory points at the end of the battle round for each of the following that apply. Score 3 victory points if one or more character or monster units were destroyed by a melee attack made by a Creations of Bile model from your army during this battle round. Score 2 victory points if one or more units, excluding character, monster, or vehicle units, were destroyed by a melee attack made by a Creations of Bile model from your army during this battle round. At the end of the battle, if one or more Adeptus Astartes, Sanctic Astartes, or Heretic Astartes units were destroyed by a melee attack made by a Creations of Bile model from your army during the battle, score 1 additional victory point. So actually, this is very good. Even if you don't fulfill the sort of primary criteria, you are still gonna be getting the victory points if you're fighting against certain armies, or if you do manage to take down a character or something like that. It also, like all of these primary objectives, it kind of forces the way you play. It changes the way you play, and means that you're going to be playing in more of a role-play way. You're going to be playing in more of a characterful way. You are going to be sending your nastier close combat units up against enemy monsters, characters, etc., so that they can drag them off for Bile's experiments. It's a really cool little secondary objective, and very useful actually, very easy to fulfill. Especially with the Creations of Bile, all of which are enhanced quite significantly. But it's also fun. It's a lot of fun to play. Only 3 Warlord traits for these guys. Surgical Precision, which is the one that Bile has. This Warlord's knowledge of natural and augmented anatomy is unparalleled, and their every strike is deliberate, cruel, and lethal. Over-egging the pudding a little there, I think. Each time this Warlord makes a melee attack on an unmodified hit roll of 4+, that attack automatically wounds the target, and the armor penetration characteristic of that attack is improved by 1. Very good. Very, very, very nice indeed. It gives you the chance of getting automatic wounds. Nice. 3 to 4 Prime Test Subject. Only the strongest test subjects long survive the rampant cell transformations associated with Bile's mysterious bioalchemy. That's a difficult one to say. Add 1 to the strength, toughness, and wounds characteristic of this Warlord. Straightforward, direct upgrade for your Warlord. It's very good. It's very bloody good. And there's no limits either. You can give that to a Demon Prince, so you can make a pretty nasty Demon Prince from that. Not bad at all. Twisted Regeneration. Not even death is able to lay the most vile of Bile's creations low. Vile Bile, I like that. Once per battle, when this Warlord is destroyed, you can choose for them to regenerate instead of using any other rules that are triggered when this Warlord is destroyed. If you do so, mark this Warlord's position, then remove this Warlord from the battlefield at the end of the phase, roll 1d6 on a 2+, set this Warlord back on the battlefield as close as possible to the position you marked and not within engagement range of any enemy units, with die 3 wounds remaining. So, it's like the Hourglass of Manat from the Cult of Time in the Thousand Sons book. It means that your Warlord can get back up. It's pretty good. It gives them another chance. It's not bad at all. Very, very useful. Again, I imagine that's going to be rather popular. Relics, only 3 relics for these guys, but they're all pretty good. Helm of All-Seeing. This Baroque helm sports numerous additional sensors, requiring various disfiguring organs with which to process the information. While the bearer is on the battlefield, each time your opponent spends a command point to use a stratagem, you can roll 1d6 on a 5+, you gain 1 command point. That's going to be everywhere. That's almost an auto-include in the current state of play, where command points are much rarer and much more useful, much more of a precious commodity. You're just going to take that automatically. That is going to be one of the relics that you take for your Warlord, because you're not going to be able to resist it. Living Carapace. With a thought, the wearer can compel this bio armor to thicken. Creations of Bile infantry model only. Once per battle, when an attack is allocated to the bearer, it can enhance this relic. If it does so until the end of the turn, each time an attack is allocated to the bearer, the damage characteristic of that attack is changed to 1. It can be useful. It's situational, but again, it can be very, very useful if your Warlord ends up hit by something really nasty, like a tower railgun or something like that. This could save its life. You know, it's pretty good. Hypergrowth bolts. Now, I imagine this one's going to be very popular as well as a sort of secondary relic. If you have a warlord with something else like the Helm of All Seeing and you use the stratagem to take another relic, I think this is probably going to be the one. These rounds contain Bile's most unstable growth-inducing serums, causing victims to explode in eruptions of swelling flesh. Creations of Bile model with bolt weapon only. When you give a model this relic, select one bolt weapon that the bearer is equipped with. That weapon is considered to be a relic for all rules purposes. Each time the bearer is selected to shoot, you can choose for that weapon to fire a hypergrowth bolt. If you do so, the bearer can only make one attack with that weapon this phase. But if that attack scores a hit, unless the target is a vehicle unit, it automatically wounds the target, bloody good, has an armor penetration characteristic of -1, and has a damage characteristic of die 3+3. So yeah, it's pretty good. It's like an assassination shot, effectively. You're going to want to be firing at enemy characters and multi-wound models with that. It's pretty good. It's not bad at all. Stratagems, only 4 stratagems. Monstrous visages. Bile's experimental administrations have left these warriors as freakish monsters, cursed with clusters of compound eyes, distended fang-stuffed maws, or myriad other grotesqueries. They are hideous to behold. Use this stratagem in the fight phase when a Creations of Bile core, Creations of Bile demonkin, or Creations of Bile character unit from your army is selected as the target of an attack. Until the end of the phase, each time an attack is made against that unit, subtract 1 from that attack's hit roll. It's good. It's good. Not only is it fun and allows you lots of modelling opportunities, like you can model units based on this stratagem, which is going to be a lot of fun. It's useful. It's very useful indeed. Taken alive. To be snatched away for experimentation by Fabius Bile and his followers is an altogether nightmarish fate. It ain't bloody half. Use this stratagem in the fight phase. When the enemy warlord is destroyed by a melee attack made by a Creations of Bile model from your army, until the end of the battle, subtract 1 from the leadership characteristic of every model in your opponent's army. Your opponent cannot use the insane bravery stratagem, and your opponent cannot use any rules to reroll a morale test. Brilliant. I mean, it's an army-wide special rule. It applies. It's situational. You do have to kill the enemy warlord, but you are if you do that, you are automatically going to play this, because why wouldn't you? It undermines the entirety of the enemy army. It's very, very good indeed. And again, it's one of those wonderful characterful stratagems that will direct the way you play. You are going to be trying to kill the enemy warlord as a result of this. The masters are watching. Feeling the expectant gaze of Bile's greatest creations from across the battlefield, his enhanced warriors strive slavishly to impress. Use the stratagem in the command phase, select 1 Creations of Bile infantry unit from your army, then select 1 friendly Creations of Bile character model that is visible to that unit. Until the end of the turn, that infantry unit is considered to be in range of any or all of the following aura abilities that character model has: Lord of Chaos, Aspire to Glory, and Demagogue. Pretty good. Pretty damn good. It basically, as long as they're visible, it undoes the range of aura abilities. It just makes them automatically usable. Situational, but could again be the difference between winning and losing a key combat. Not bad at all. Autostimulants. This sounds fun. Arrays of subdermal vials inject autostimulants and biocatalysts into the warrior's enhanced muscles, invigorating them for incredible feats of exertion. Use this stratagem at the start of your charge phase. Select 1 Creations of Bile core unit from your army. Until the end of the phase, that unit is eligible to declare a charge in a turn in which it advanced. Straight and simple, very good. Situational, but can be. It means that certain units in your army can move and advance, so they're going to be much quicker, and they're going to be able to charge at the end of it. So you're going to want to use it on something like Possessed that are quick anyway, and that can close very, very quickly with the enemy. You can be getting it's difficult, but you can be getting turn 1 charges with stuff like this. It's very, very, very good indeed. So that's the Creations of Bile. They are generally regarded as one of the better armies in the book mechanically. They're also one of the funnest armies. They're very niche, they're very particular, and they are one of the more role-playing choices in this book. They demand... It doesn't really work if all you're going to do is take like standard Chaos Space Marine models out of the box and then just plonk Fabius Bile down amongst them. You really want to do some conversion work with these guys. You really want to make them mutated and butchered and surgically altered and make them interesting, you know? Do something fun with them. That's what this army is for. It's why it exists, and it's very attractive, I've got to say. Given that Fabius himself is such a great character, that there's such great background surrounding this army, and the aesthetics are so particular, and the rules are so good, I can see this being very, very popular indeed. I kind of want to go there. I kind of want to do a Creations of Bile army at some point. So, my loves, that was the Creations of Bile. When we come back, I think we'll go back to one of the Undivided Legions, and I think what we'll do is the Alpha Legion. So until next time, my loves, bye-bye!